Over the past several seasons, we've told the stories of children who couldn't read and the families and teachers who tried to help them inside systems that weren't built to succeed. We listened to the pain, we traced the history, we followed the science, and one truth kept rising to the surface. This is not a mystery, and it's no longer a debate. Reading failure harms children first, but responsibility does not stop there. In Season 4 of My Child Can't Read, A Heartland Crisis, we widen the lens to examine the state of literacy in Kansas and across America. This season begins with harm, the lived reality of children and families, and follows it upward through classrooms, policy, and institutions. Because when the evidence is clear, when solutions are proven, neutrality disappears. This is a season about what happens next, about the difference between knowing what works and taking responsibility for it. Welcome to Season 4, The State of Literacy. Throughout this season, we've asked some hard questions. How literacy became so uneven in a country that knows how to teach children to read. Why policy so often lags behind research. And what it would actually take to close the literacy gap, not just in theory, but in practice. Today's episode is different. This is not an argument. It's not a blueprint. It's a case study. A look inside what happens when research, leadership, funding, and classroom practice are intentionally aligned. So where does something like this begin? Not with a strategy, not with a building, but with a moment when the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. There's a moment many educators can point to when something just doesn't add up. For C.C. Wolf, that moment came in a 5th grade classroom.
I was substitute teaching in the 5th grade and calling on students to read, and they couldn't read. And I said, Gretchen, I can't understand why that could happen. And she said, well, you need to be doing what I'm doing. And I blindly followed Gretchen.
C.C. was a classroom teacher doing exactly what she'd been trained to do. Behind the scenes, there were also people who saw what this could become. Dana Hensley was one of the early board members who helped bring Phillips Fundamental Learning Center to life. Did you know Gretchen?
Did.
Yes.
I did. And they were such a wonderful partnership. They just was the yin and the yang. It was just wonderful to see Janine so passionate with so many ideas and all over the page. And there was Gretchen, very calm, very controlled, very composed, and putting it all in a workable framework.
That does sound like a perfect pairing.
Oh, it was.
She watched it grow from idea to infrastructure. But this wasn't just an idea. For Janine Phillips, it started as a mother trying to understand how her son learned to read. And for Gretchen, it became a commitment to making sure other children didn't fall through the same gaps. And what began as an idea quickly became something else, a responsibility. But for many educators, the problem wasn't effort. It was understanding.
I had a student. He told me, Ms. Wolf, these words look like nothing but squiggles and dots. And that's when I realized that all children don't see words as letters put together. And it made me realize when I talked with Gretchen how little I did know about how to teach a child who learned to read differently, how to work with that student. So Gretchen led me on a very great path of learning how children who are struggling can learn to read.
That's not a child who can't learn. That's a system that didn't know how to teach them. So what happens when the system works? For those working directly with students, the problem wasn't abstract. Bunny Hill, educator and longtime literacy advocate, saw it up close.
He would come over and we would start working. We'd be sitting side by side on the couch and he would go to sleep.
Oh my goodness.
Sound asleep. And I knew, what I knew was that his brain had just shut down. So much so, out of survival, he went to sleep because he couldn't do what I was showing him how to do.
That's not disengagement. That's survival. And for families, the experience can be just as revealing. Parent Marietta Wetzel saw that transformation firsthand through her son.
Dr. Stone really kind of showed how he has amazing skills in 3D spatial. He's super bright.
Yeah.
It just takes him longer to process the written word and spoken language. Having that assessment and Dr. Stone sit across the table from our son and with his family, it really, helped him realize that I'm different, but I'm super bright and I'm going to be very successful in life. He went through a lot of different programs by private tutors who had been trained at FLC. And then his high school years were spent at Wichita Collegiate, and they had a good program called Learning Lab that was helpful. He could get, for him, just a little bit of extra time on tests. And it's not to give him an advantage, it's to level the playing field. And the work that Phillips does it's life-changing. And, every year, every 3 months that we go by without the right intervention for kids, that hurts those kids and it hurts our society.
What changed wasn't his ability, it was the understanding around him. But knowing what works and building something that lasts are not the same thing.
When you are an infant nonprofit, how are you going to fundraise? How are you going to staff it? Where are you going to be located? I can remember thinking that if we could just do X, then the doors are going to open. And Janine would figure out how to do X, but the doors didn't open. And so it has just been hurdle after hurdle. And it's remarkable that she has stayed this committed to helping these kids.
Building something like this takes more than belief. It takes people who can carry the vision forward. People like Karen Cox, who helped lead Phillips Fundamental Learning Center's capital campaign.
Of course, children need to learn to read, but when you start understanding the core issues about Kansas and reading scores and why children are dropping out and why people are in prisons and why they're not getting jobs, when you start really seeing it touch all the aspect of economic growth, but also personal development, you can't not be involved. One time around the campaign table, and we had an amazing group of campaign volunteers, people that just said, I will sign up for this journey. I have no idea what I'm doing. And this isn't my favorite thing to do. It's raise major gifts. Yeah. But I will do this thing. And celebrating the first milestone, I remember that one of the campaign volunteers, Bunny Hill or Dana Hensley, had passed around little children's shoes. Yeah. And we were getting ready, full agenda. And she passed around these shoes as kind of a mission moment to remind us why we were doing what we were doing. And she asked us to hold on to those shoes. And I still have that shoe sitting on my desk. It's a literal child's shoe. Wow. Really powerful. But it was a celebration of the first million on a $20 million at the time journey. But we took a moment to celebrate, to really understand why it matters. And then we talked about the money, because it's never about the money. It's never about the building. It's about why and what happens inside and what that money, how we can bring that money to life and transform lives.
PFLC's founder, Janine Phillips, helped others see what was at stake. Even at the policy level, there were moments of realization. James Franco with Kansas Policy Institute remembers one clearly when he first met Janine.
Public schools can't use the term dyslexia. I'm like, all right, that's a bunch of hooey. There's no way that that's the case. And my mom is a special education teacher up in the Kansas City area. Mm-hmm. So I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, I met this crazy woman. And she says, you can't use the term dyslexia. She's like, we know what's going on. We're not allowed to certainly diagnose, but we're not even allowed to use the term. So if we're talking about a kid who's struggling to read, we just can't even use the term.
And today, that awareness is starting to spread. Jill Hodge, educator, trainer, and local school board member, works with districts across Kansas supporting both teachers and leadership.
Once teachers and administrators truly understand the ramifications of a student's inability to read, their perspective often shifts from, wish we could help, to, we have to help. With so much emphasis on graduation rates, low reading scores, educators are realizing that what we've been doing hasn't worked, so we have to figure out what does work. The science of reading has told us for many years what we need to do, but unfortunately, we didn't follow the science. It's often said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Sometimes I feel that's what's happening in our schools. When teachers know better, they do better. We need to help them know better.
Because literacy doesn't stop at school doors, it shapes workforce, opportunity, entire communities. Dr. Sherry Utash, president of WSU Tech and workforce leader, sees that impact every day.
Need a competent, strong workforce to be able to operate the businesses that happen in this city
That's
and
exactly
beyond.
Right.
And
the children that are in classrooms today are our future workforce at all levels. And it takes all levels to make organizations work and operate. And so that's why literacy and the ability to be able to be confident to read and to write and to do math is critically important. Mm-hmm. It's just critically important. And every child should have that opportunity.
And maybe the most important part of this story is that it isn't hidden. This work was never meant to stay contained.
We're going to transform education, and we're going to do it here in a way that other people could do if they wanted to. They can come see. We're not just teaching reading, we're teaching teachers how to take a classroom of kids and keep the joy, keep the high expectations, keep the spirit alive and engaged.
This story is not about one school. It's about what happens when people at every level refuse to remain neutral once proof exists. You don't have to build something this big to be part of that change, but you do have to ask, what would it look like if we aligned what we know with what we actually do? Because literacy is not a mystery. It's a responsibility. And when we choose to build for it, change is not only possible, it's already happening. If you want to experience this for yourself,
simulations help participants actually feel how dyslexic students feel. They're constantly frustrated and exhausted because reading is hard. They know they're smart, but they can't read. We offer those at our center free of charge every other month. If your child is struggling to read, summer is your window to change that. Hi, I'm Jill Hodge with Phillips Fundamental Learning Center. Our 6-week summer literacy program helps children ages 5 to 10 build real confidence in reading, writing, and spelling using proven, science-based methods that actually work. Through small groups, games, and hands-on learning, your child will build the foundational skills he needs to thrive. Spots are limited, so call 316-684-7323 or visit funlearn.org/summer 2026 today. Give your child what he or she needs to enter school this fall with confidence.
Thanks for listening to My Child Can't Read, a Heartland Crisis. If this episode resonated with you, if you saw your child, your classroom, or your community in these stories, you're not alone. Now is the time to act. Every child can learn to read, and we all share responsibility to make it happen. I invite you to take action today by subscribing to catch every episode, rating and reviewing to help others find this series, sharing your story and learning how the Phillips Fundamental Learning Center is changing lives at funlearn.org/podcast, and by sharing this show with a friend, teacher, or parent who needs to hear it. All resources, source credits, and tools mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes. Together, we can take responsibility and rewrite the story of literacy, one child, one classroom, and one school at a time right here in the Heartland.